shit ain't gon' stop till we on top and we ballin', my nigga. We be fly as fuck, you know them bitches be stalking my niggas. That shit'll never change and it's the same with all my niggas. City to city, I should be at home, that's what my ribs say. But bitch, I'm grown, I'm in these streets and closed caption. Niggas know we bout that action. If a nigga play with me, then my Hakim gon' let him have it. Hey, think you the shit, this truth the shit. Nigga play, I let that Ruger hit. Get on them tracks, they be like, who is this? I'm rude with it, ain't got no manners. All them pussy niggas talkin' shit, yeah, I know they can't stand us, but we U.P.K, Louisiana, bitch, that's what I'm reppin'. And my niggas solid number, real ones in my section. If you wanna get down, put your boots on, start steppin'. Brotherhood is a weapon. Brotherhood is a weapon. Better watch how you steppin', cause brotherhood is a weapon. If I die for my niggas, it'll be an honor and a blessing. Better watch how you steppin', cause brotherhood is a weapon. Brotherhood is a weapon. Better watch how you steppin', cause brotherhood is a weapon. If I die for my niggas, it'll be an honor and a blessing. Better watch how you steppin', cause brotherhood I lay my life down right now for all my sisters and brothers, because I love them, I see them dapping and hug them. It's amazing to see how well we adapt from the struggle. Born again from a life of sin, trapped in the gutter. My mind frame was to kill my own kind. Feeling inferior, waking up ready to die. Run with them killers, so it's just a matter of time. For why take your life or let you take mine? That's when I realized the slaves killing slaves, while the white man live to get old. We in them graves, shit got me feeling played. I opened the Bible, went through them records, found out we was royalty, a nation to be respected. But in this world we rejected, we hated for our complexion. Still fighting to get accepted, we hear the truth and reject it. But love is getting corrected, and all my niggas correct me. The commandments, the foundation we erected. Brotherhood is a weapon. Brotherhood is a weapon. Better watch how you steppin', cause brotherhood is a weapon. If I die for my niggas, it'll be an honor and a blessing. Better watch how you steppin', cause brotherhood is a weapon. Brotherhood is a weapon. Better watch how you steppin', cause brotherhood is a weapon. If I die for my niggas, it'll be an honor and a blessing. Better watch how you steppin', cause brotherhood is a weapon. Hey, hey. Hey, hey.
Pando, kill the beat.
I don't know who, somebody need to hear this. Y'all don't speak Hebrew, that's Yiddish. How the fuck you try to label us anti-Semitic? We the Israelites, blacks, native Hispanics. The Germans getting locked up for the Holocaust. Meanwhile, black people still up in the Holocaust. 100 million of us died in the transatlantic. 6 million died, y'all want the world to never forget it. You can never be a Jew, you a Ashkenaz. This ain't a star dum-dum, a gun that would die. Yeah, Yeezy told the truth and got ostracized. Not one person in the Bible had on a yarmulke. We were slaves in America like we was in Egypt. Y'all don't even fit the curses in the Torah neither. Y'all was blind to the truth, I had to make it clear. How Jerusalem, your land, your people came from Europe. That was 1947, your menorah got 9 sticks, it's really only 7. Yeah, it's us against the world, Armageddon. This what happened when you inherit lies from your ancestors. Y'all the synagogue of Satan with them black hats. Your whole nation sitting ducks, Aflacs. Bunch of thieves and culture vultures, ain't nothing kosher. To tell the truth, you vagabonds don't have a culture. Macedonia, Alexander and Philip, you a convert, so tell me, how the fuck is you Israel? That don't make you the people just cause you litter. Why my people can't hate your people like y'all hate Hitler? All the prophets was black and was called nigga. Y'all don't even fit the description that's in the scriptures. Abraham, all the way down to Jacob, we the real Jews. Y'all don't study Christ, y'all follow the Talmud. Keep it real, yeah, let's keep it real. Cold hard truth, it give you chills. Say y'all Jewish cause y'all ain't really them. About to do them like Hammond, it's the Feast of Purim. U.P.K undefeated, this an easy win. We was born fighting, y'all the evil twin. Jacob took hold of his heel, then out came his little red bastard, they kosher deals. It's only 12 tribes, y'all trying to make it 13. Esau despised his birthright, the Lord cursed him. He ain't the devil, who is? I'm still searching. Ask your rabbi why he get them babies herpes. I don't know what's worse, that or you claiming that you a Maccabee. I'm about to cancel, everybody try to cancel ye. I ain't afraid to speak, that's what I do. They riding to the core, I'm just judging them by their fruit. Cause they ain't suffering curses. If I was carnal, I promise I'd punch you in person. I know this an uncomfortable subject. They making millions off our culture and black people suffering from it. Yeah, they don't believe in Christ, they the Antichrist. Make a living off of niggas, they a parasite. I ain't afraid to tell the truth, niggas terrified. I'm about to go DEFCON 4, I ain't satisfied.
That is proof. That is absolute proof that they know we are the real Jews. That's absolute proof. Now, he got the records. Go find me a white Jew on any archaeology in Egypt anywhere. You will never find a piece of archaeology with white people as slaves in Egypt. So don't tell me that they were slaves and it's their identity, and they know it. And I know the blasphemy of them, which they are Jews. The Lord knows the blasphemy of you so-called white people that say you are Jews and you are not Jews. You are not the people of the law. You are not God's chosen people. God's chosen people are living in the ghettos of America. God's chosen people are in poverty and depression in the streets of America. God's chosen people are walking around in America with no identity. That's where God's chosen people are.
All right, let's get started. Shalom. All right, shalom, shalom. Yahweh Shemel Shabrak Thumb to all the brothers. Yahweh Shemal Thumb to Shemel Shad all the sisters. Peace and Officer YAHANNA and the Commanding General YAHANNA. We are the I.S.U.P.K, which was started out of 1 West, 125th Street, Harlem, New York. All right, again, the water for tuning in. Okay, shout out Janice Bell, Yahweh Shemal Thumb by Shemel Shad. Water for tuning in, sis. Okay, again, another Monday night. Every Monday night from 5 till 7 p.m. we're going live teaching history, Canadian history to our people, teaching Canadian history to Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. Okay, the history that needs to be told from our side of the story. Okay, the history that needs to be told from our lens, from the people who suffered at the hands of Canadians, the hands of the Canadian government, understand, and the powers that be, who have heavily enforced, swayed, made decisions on behalf of the ruling class of Canada on how to treat people, how to treat Blacks, how to treat Hispanics, how to treat Indigenous. And throughout the years, their history has proven who they are. Historically, Canadians have been very cruel to Blacks, Hispanics, and Indigenous people. Very cruel. Up until 2024, they are still being extremely cruel to Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, who are the children of God, who are the Israelites that the Bible speaks of. And this history class specifically is going into the history of on how Canada has dealt with us as a people. Okay, so make sure you tune in every Monday night from 5 to 7 p.m. if you want to learn about your history, if you want to learn about Canadian history, you want to learn how the history pertains to you so that you don't have to repeat the mistakes of the past. Okay? So, and especially if you want to be a brother or sister in the school, make sure you hit those sign-in links. We got the sign-in links in the chat. This is a class. All right, this is a class. If you're a brother or sister who's in Canada, you want to be a part of the school, Okay, make sure you hit those sign-in links, hit the sign-up links before the class ends. Okay, our brother will take your attendance and just see if you're coming to class or not, how consistently you're coming to class, and if you spend enough time and you're diligent, Lord willing, I will see you in the school. Okay, so we are the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Okay, we are a school that teaches Blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians that we have a history, we have an identity, we have a language, we have a culture, we have a God. Understand? We don't have to be here in 2024 praying to a white Jesus, praying to a God that is a false God, that is an idol. That image that they portray Christ to be is not the real image according to the Bible. According to the Bible, Christ was a black man from the tribe of Judah, a brother with woolly hair who looked just like our brothers and sisters. You understand? And that image that we should keep in our children's mind is an image of themselves, so that they can look at themselves and have some pride about who they are, so that they can look at themselves and say, hey, I have a language. It's not English. It's not the language of the people that enslaved my people and forced this language on me, but I have my own language and my own culture. I have my own role models. When you look through the Bible, you read about very honorable brothers and sisters. And these were brothers, these were sisters, these were Black, Hispanic, and indigenous people. Understand? The people who identify as that today, those are the people of the book. Okay, according to history, according to biblical prophecy, according to every single science you can think of. You understand? We are the people of the book. And that's why the I.S.U.P.K is so valuable, because we're giving a truth that has been robbed from our people for far too long. It's a very evil thing, like I said, up until 2024, that the Canadian government, knowing who they enslaved, knowing who they destroyed, they have yet to give us our identity. They have yet to teach it in their school systems who we are and where we came from. They love to tell us that we're African and that we were from West Africa, but they don't tell us, excuse me, they don't tell us our nationality. They don't tell us the language that we spoke. They don't tell us the God that we served. They don't tell us about those things. What they like to do is just group us with all other Africans. You understand? When you look at the continent of Africa today, you have over 50 countries down there. Were we from Sierra Leone? Were we from the Congos? Were we from Ethiopia? Were we from South Africa? Were we Nigerian? There's so many different countries down there. And amongst these countries, they all speak different languages, many different languages. You understand? And we are a people who was taken and enslaved and colonized and quote unquote conquered and destroyed as a people. But these same people who claim to love us, the same people who claim to care about us, it is proven throughout history up until this day that they continue to hate us. They continue to hate us. They continue to destroy us. They continue to teach lies. They continue to push Christianity on us, which is such a disgusting thing. Christianity was the religion of our slave master. Christianity was brought to us and beaten into us as if their way of life was better than ours. You had slave owners inside of Canada forcing Blacks and indigenous people to become Christian. And as they did that, there's a famous quote from an indigenous brother who was speaking to a European settler, as they say. And this European settler was asking him and telling him about how great Christianity is and why indigenous people should be Christian. And that indigenous man looked at that man who was teaching him about Christianity, And he said, am I going to be with your people when I get to heaven? And this European settler who was Christian said, yes. And the indigenous man said, well, if your people are in heaven, I want nothing to do with it. And that's something that our people need to understand, is that his religion is not good for us. His heaven is not good for us. His sanctuary and his peace comes at your destruction. It's been proven time and time again. We're going to prove it again in this class as we go through the history of a place called Africville. Okay, there's a settlement that was called Africville inside of Nova Scotia, Halifax, Nova Scotia, where many of our brothers and sisters went to settle back in the 1700s, 1800s. Okay, specifically more in the 1800s. And this is a time where Black people inside of Canada are slaves inside of Canada. They're slaves inside of Canada, and they were looking for a place to settle and to live. And as they were in Nova Scotia, this place that was called Africville was a place where they were able to settle and live. And as slavery was becoming abolished and slavery was quote unquote ending, these same brothers and sisters began to purchase land in this area called Africa. They began to purchase land and they began to build up their homes and their communities. Because in Canada, it was extremely segregated during this time, as it was in many places throughout the U.S. Slavery is ending, and European settlers, quote unquote European settlers, and Blacks and indigenous people were seeing that we do not get along. We don't get along and we do not want to live together. We had many Europeans inside of Canada who were pushing for segregation. They did not want Black people inside of their schools. They did not want indigenous people inside of their schools. They wanted indigenous people in small parts of terrible land where they didn't have to quote unquote integrate or deal with them. And it was the same for Black people inside of Canada, where segregation was a very real thing. You had segregation all throughout Canada, and there was a certain outlook that Europeans had on our people. Because of this, you have segregation, and you have places like Africville that begin to thrive and build up inside of Canada. This was happening all over Canada. And this story of Africville and what took place, as many people that might look at it as a very sad and horrific story. They might look at this story as a very evil thing and wicked thing that was, or an unjust thing that was done to us as a people. But as you look throughout history and you look through how these people have always dealt with us, you will see that this is just another day for them. The Bible says that there is nothing new under the sun. There's no new man under the sun. Things that have happened in the past are the things that continue to repeat because the people that have been on this earth before, they are here again today. That's why they say history repeats itself. Same people that hated us 5,000 years ago, and Esau was trying to kill his brother Jacob. It's the same spirit that carries on to this day. You understand? And the reason I say Esau, because Esau is their biblical name. According to the Bible, they are the descendants of Esau. They are the Edomites that the Bible speaks of. That is their biblical identity. You understand? They're not called Russian or German or Polish. They're not called Italians. You understand? And whatever these different European nations call themselves, they're not Romans, they're not Greeks. They are the nation of Idumea. They're descendants of Esau. You look in Roman history, the Romans called themselves Idumeans. They were proud of who they were. They were proud of their heritage and their forefathers. knew that they were Idumeans. They knew where they came from. You understand? They don't have a history that was eaten and destroyed out of them. They know their history. They know who they are. It's very easy to identify who Esau is according to the Bible. That is their biblical name. They have been very cruel and very evil towards their brother Jacob for decades, for thousands of years. The book of Ezekiel says that Esau has a perpetual hatred for the children of Israel. That is an ongoing hatred. It is a hatred that is not going to end. And that is why they have dealt with us the way they have. Understand? So we're going to go through an article reading about what Africville is. And the reason we're just going to read about what it is because something I find that is very disgraceful that the powers that be inside of Canada have allowed to go on is they are very good at not speaking about their history. They're very good on not speaking about all the wicked and evil things that they do to people. They don't talk about it. Because of that, many people believe that Canada is some safe place, some beautiful, loving, peaceable place, when really there are many evils that go on within these walls, within these borders called Canada. You had many immigrants around the 1960s immigrating over from Jamaica and Trinidad and all these different Caribbean islands. And they came over there because they came over here with the belief that Canada would be a better place. And as they came over here, they quickly found out that the women made good, what did they call them? Made good servants. When women were coming out of World War II, white women in Canada started to enter the workforce. And as they opened immigration back to Black people in the 1950s, 1960s, you had Caribbean immigrants coming into Canada, and these women were taking on the roles of the women, the European women that were entering the workforce. This is a very known thing. You had Black immigrants coming to Canada, and the only jobs that they could have were porters. These were the jobs that were meant for a servant. You understand? As a matter of fact, King Solomon, one of the wisest men to ever walk this earth, he knew that something like this would take place. I'm going to share my screen and go to a verse really quick. We're going to go to the book of Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 7. Okay, this is something that King Solomon prophesied and saw that would happen. He read through the scriptures and he understood the different things that were going to take place. Ecclesiastes chapter 10 and verse 7 says, I have seen servants upon horses. So what did King Solomon see? He saw people who were meant for servitude in a very high place. They were upon horses. They were in a high place. It says, and princes walking as servants upon the earth. This was a very sad thing that King Solomon saw, because he saw the children of Israel, the descendants of Jacob, the people who were meant for rulership. Princes, they were walking as servants upon the earth. You had Black men as porters, and you had women taking on domestic roles inside of Canada, because that is how Europeans viewed us as a people. That was the only thing we were good for. You understand? This is a very biblical thing that we're living in 2024. This is why you see Blacks, Hispanics, and indigenous people in ghettos, barrios, and reservations. They're not meant to be here. What's going on to palm oil quinoa? All right, shalom. I'm not sure if your brother or sister, but shalom, Lord in Christ. Tawada for tuning in. Tawada means thank you in the Hebrew. Okay, so this was something King Solomon saw that was a very sad thing. This was the role that we played in Canada up until this day. Right? We're gonna read about Africville, and we're gonna read about how again Black people were building Canada, right? No different than in Egypt when we read in Exodus where we were building treasure cities for Pharaoh. That's why it says in Isaiah, is Israel a homeborn slave? Because these curses that the Most High said would befall us are very real. He said in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28, if we don't obey him, then curses will fall upon us and overtake us. And Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we need to come back to our culture, keeping the laws, statutes, and commandments. It's a very important thing for us. Okay, no sweat, palm oil. What's going on, sis? Yahweh Shamar, Bashim Yahweh. All right, the water for tuning in, sis. All right, and everybody who's viewing, make sure we get those likes up. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Okay, it takes 2 seconds to hit that like and support our page, support what we're doing. All right, so again, this is a very sad thing that we saw, that King Solomon saw. All right, it was a very sad thing. And this is why we as a people need to come back to these laws, statutes, and commandments and take our culture back. All right, let's get into this article. We're going to read about basically the history of Africville. All right. We're going to read about us building Canada, building the nation of Canada. And we're going to read about this community that we established. All right. Give me 2 seconds. All right, this is an article from the Canadian Encyclopedia itself. All right, let's get that big on the screen so everybody can see it. I'll also post the link in the chat. So if you want to check this out on your own time, feel free to check it out. So we got the link in the chat. All right, and we're going to read through this article and just read about our history here in Canada. Excuse me. Okay, so this is from the Canadian Encyclopedia. And it's titled, got a lot of ads here. It's titled, this is basically the history on Africville, okay? From the Canadian Encyclopedia. It says, Africville was an African-Canadian village located just north of Halifax and founded around the mid-19th century. The city of Halifax demolished the once prosperous seaside community in the 1960s in what many said was an act of racism. The mayor of the Halifax Regional Municipality apologized for the action in 2010. For many people, Africville represents the oppression faced by Black Canadians and the efforts to right historic wrongs. It says Halifax was founded in 1749 when enslaved African people dug out roads and built much of the city. Some evidence indicates that this early Black community lived a few kilometers north of the city on the southern shore of the Bedford Basin, an area that became Africville. Other evidence suggests that some of the Jamaican Maroons resettled to Nova Scotia by the British government moved to the basin in 1796. The first record of settlement in the Africville area is from 1761. The land was granted to several white families, including the families of men who were imported and sold enslaved African men and women. Okay, I'm going to quickly pause there just to note, again, I find that I keep repeating this every class, and I keep getting more and more dumbfounded about how many people don't know about the things that took place in Canada. And one of the simple things that people do not understand is that slavery was real inside of Canada. Everybody always loves to point to the U.S. and United States and what took place there, not understanding that the same things that happened in the United States happened in Canada. It was no different. People were getting lynched. Runaway slaves were being hunted down, given different warnings and different punishments for the first and second and third attempt. All these things were happening in Canada, and it was no different than what happened in the U.S. All right, slaves were here, blacks were here as enslaved people, as well as indigenous people. Okay, Hispanic people, we were enslaved, and we built up Canada. Okay, we built up Canada. That is a part of Canadian history. Okay, the article goes on to say Campbell Road, in 1836, Campbell Road connected central Halifax to the Africville area. It is likely that several black families lived in the area, earning it the nickname African Village. They were a mix of formerly enslaved people, Maroons, and black refugees from the War of 1812. Many of these refugees were themselves once enslaved in the Chesapeake area of the United States. In 1848, William Arnold and William Brown, both black settlers, bought land in Africville. Other families followed, and in 1849, Seaview African United Baptist Church was open to serve the village's 80 residents. The church was called the Beating Heart of Africville and was the center of the village to both churchgoers and non-churchgoers. All right, I'm going to jump down a bit just for time. And so basically, it's just speaking on the establishment of this community. Okay, and one of the things that this community claims that they hold very dear to them was this Baptist church that was built to serve the community. As you read different articles and you may see different videos or documentaries on Africville, you'll see that they had a very deep connection to this church. A lot of people had a lot of memories at this church. And this is something that is very common for blacks inside of North and South Central America. A strong connection to a church and church family and some kind of church community. This is how most of us grew up. Yeah, I mean, whether you went to church or not, you had an aunt or uncle or a grandmother or grandfather or somebody that was in church asking you to come to church, trying to get you to go to church. This is how most of us grew up. Okay, and this was a place that Africville was kind of like, I guess you could say something that brought the community together. You understand? And this is something we're going to talk a little bit about as we go through this class. And there's something that I find extremely sad and troubling. And one of the very sad and troubling things about this community, and not just this community, but many of our people and many of our communities, is that we hold the Christian church so dear to us. We hold the Christian church like it's a very safe place and a beautiful place for us. And again, when we look at history, we look at the history of the Christian church and what it's done to our people. I feel that nobody should have the understanding that the Christian church is a safe haven. When you read through the book of Matthew, Christ said that ye shall know them by their fruits. That's how you're able to tell if a place is good or evil, a place is good or bad. Right? You'll see what the church produces. This is how you're able to tell where Christ dwells, where Christ lives, where the men of God truly are and truly dwell. Because ye shall know them by their fruits. The fruits of Christianity have proven itself for hundreds of years to be one of the most cruel and oppressive religions and destructive things for our people. Christianity is a religion that was forced on us, was beaten into us. You had indigenous brothers and sisters who were forced onto Catholic residential schools. And you had nuns and popes who were molesting and abusing, and what's the word? Basically forcing malnutrition on our brothers and sisters' kids. And you had thousands of people dying, thousands of indigenous brothers and sisters dying, being molested, having their culture beaten out of them. Imagine going to school and being beaten for speaking your language. You go to school and your hair's cut off because a pope or a nun is looking at you as uncivilized, looking at your hair like it's disgusting, telling you to cut it off, and you're not allowed to go to this school without wearing your hair in a braid. These are the disgusting things that the Christian church have done to us. And a couple of years ago, you had indigenous people asking for an apology from the Pope, as if an apology is going to change all the orphan children and destroyed and separated families that were caused by the Canadian government and the powers that be. The Christian church is the house of Satan. The Christian church is such a disgusting place. History has proven it time and time again. It's very sad to see that a Christian church was the place of their safety inside of Africville. You understand? When you go to the book of Lamentations, chapter 4 and verse 17, it says, I'm loosely paraphrasing, it says, in our watching, we have watched for our vain help. We have looked to a nation that could not save us. And when you see some of the documentaries on what took place in Africville, you see them going to different council meetings and trying to plead with the government and municipality of Nova Scotia, trying to plead with them to do something right for their community. When if that pastor that was leading those people understood that we don't need to look to these people for our saving. We don't need to look to them for our help. They have proven time and time again that they are the devil that the Bible speaks of. That they are a very deceitful people, a people that are full of lies and treachery, people who are full of broken promises and broken treaties. You see how they treated us in slavery, and now we're going to look at them to help us? No pastor should be telling their congregation things like that. And those were some of the things that I saw in some of the documentaries pertaining to this place. The only thing that we should ever be doing is looking to Christ for our salvation, looking to the Most High for our salvation, and doing the things that he says. Psalms 91 says that the Most High, he who dwells under the shadow of the Almighty, right, will find refuge. Paraphrasing, you go through the book of Psalms 91, you'll see about being under the Lord's safety, being under the Lord's buckler and shield and safety and refuge. You understand? Under his shadow and under his wing. The only way we get that protection from the Most High is when we obey him. You got your Christian pastor telling you that the laws of God are done away with, telling you that 50% of the Bible is done away with, and you don't need to read the Old Testament, and throwing out parts of the book. None of these things are found when you read through the Bible. Christ told you to be like him, to live like him. He kept all the laws, statutes, and commandments. He said to love one another as I have loved you. We have to be like Christ. We have to obey him. That is how we get under his covering. That's how we get under the Lord's protection. And we have clearly, as a people, not been under his protection. Black, Hispanic, and indigenous man is the most defeated species on this earth. We left our power's protection. We left our God's protection. I remember a couple years ago when COVID was damn near plaguing the earth and shutting down everything going on in the earth. And I remember seeing Indians throwing their gods inside of a river. I thought that was one of the most beautiful sights I had ever seen. They were taking their Shiva and their elephants and their cows and whatever gods that they worshipped, and they were throwing them in the river because COVID was killing millions of people. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of people dying of COVID. And the East Indians understood that their gods were not protecting them. The sons of Elam understood that their gods were not with them. And their gods had no power. There was no power to protect them from COVID. There was no power to protect them from the plagues of the Most High. We got to understand, Black, Hispanic, and indigenous man, that the Lord is the one who kills. The Lord is the one who heals. The Lord is the one who has the power to protect us. And there is nobody else beside him. We were not protected in Africa. We weren't protected during slavery. We left the Most High's protection. And that doesn't mean that the Lord wanted us to go through these things. But when you picture a father and a son, if you tell your son not to hang out with those boys, but he's 15 years old who are out dealing drugs, you tell your son to stay away from those people, not to go out at 1 a.m. and, you know what I mean, and hang around those people. Your father is telling you that your father is trying to protect you. Your father wants good for you. And if you're a son who's disobedient and don't listen, you can't complain when you're sitting behind a jail cell. You can't complain when a bullet goes through your head because you left the protection of your father. And that's the same thing that we did with the Most High. He didn't want us to go through these things, but when we choose to be stubborn and stiff-necked as a people, we leave the Most High's protection. And let's keep going on in this article. It says, and here's some of the things that the people were experiencing who were living in Africville. Okay, so this says, taxes but no services. It says Africville residents ran fishing businesses from the Bedford Basin, selling their catch locally and in Halifax. Other residents ran farms and several opened small stores toward the end of the 19th century. It was a haven from the anti-Black racism they faced in Halifax. In the city, Black women were generally only able to find work as domestic servants, and where men were limited to a few jobs such as sleeping car porters and on trains. Children swam on Tibby's Pond and played baseball in Kildare's Field. In the winter, everyone played hockey on the pond when it froze. So now you see this community is a community of hardworking brothers and sisters. Okay? Hardworking brothers and sisters who were fishermen, domestic servants, and working on sleeping car porters. These brothers and sisters were working. They were working and they were fully committed to paying taxes to the government. And inside of Canada, when your taxes go to the municipality that you live in. You have federal taxes, you have provincial taxes. You have taxes that go towards building up your city. You have taxes that go towards building up the entire country, or at least going towards the country and the government of Canada to decide what they are going to do with your money, right? And that's a good thing. Christ said, give to Caesar what is Caesar. Christ said, whose face is on that coin? He was telling his disciples, pay your taxes. This is not your country. This is not your rulership. All right, 1 second. All right. So Christ said, give to Caesar what is Caesar. Understand? And the blacks that were living inside of Africa paying taxes, that was a very good thing for them to do. Understand? And that should let you know that this place is not your rest. This is the place of your slavery. This is the place of your captivity. This is the place that you came to and were brought to build up another nation's empire. They want to teach in the public schools, I think the new term was called a mass migration. They want to teach that to our kids inside of elementary schools, inside of North America. They want to call the transatlantic slave trade a mass migration because they want you to feel more at home inside of this place. They want you to have the belief that you just migrated here to look for a better opportunity at life. And that is not at all the case. You were brought here on cargo slave ships. Millions of our people died on those boats as they came over to the so-called New World. Many of our people died of sicknesses and diseases. You had women menstruating over top of other people. Women are on their cycles inside of these cargo slave ships, living inside of the most disgusting and despicable conditions you could ever think of. We were brought over here as chattel slaves. We were brought over here as inventory. And what does inventory do? It makes a company money. That is what we did here inside of Canada and North and South Central America. This is not our home. And that's something that we as a people heavily need to understand. That is a lesson that our people have not learned yet. You want to make Canada your home, when look at how historically they have treated us. You understand? So during this time, brothers and sisters are paying taxes. And this is a very important thing to understand, because as we get into the story, you're going to see how cruelly that the powers that be of Canada have treated blacks here inside of Canada. It says the city of Halifax collected taxes in Africville, but did not provide services such as paved roads, running water, or sewers. So even though you're a black man and a black woman paying taxes inside of Canada, you are not receiving any paved roads. You don't have sewage. You don't have water. These services, these basic services that Canada loves to say is a basic human right of every person. Human Rights Commission deems clean water as a basic human right. Well, if you're black inside of Canada during this time, you were not afforded that basic right. And you think in 2024 it's any different. You have natives, indigenous people who are our brothers, That's another disgusting thing that they have done, is that it's trying to separate us from being a people, separate us from being a nation. That's Psalms 83. Indigenous people in 2024 do not have clean drinking water. The city of Toronto has no problem driving trucks down the street and watering plants that are on the side of the road, giving plants clean drinking water. But for some reason, Indigenous people inside of Canada in 2024 are not awarded that same privilege. And to a common person, they might look at that as, how is that possible? How is it that the Canadian government, how is it that a people inside of Canada do not have clean water? And most people think to just turn on the tap and there's my water. Well, Indigenous people on reserves, when they turn on their taps, they have brown water coming out of their pipes. Brown water is coming out of their pipes in 2024. The Canadian government can't say that they don't have the money, they don't have the resources. They can't say that they don't know how to make the infrastructure. Canadian government can't say that we don't know how to clean water, because they're clearly doing it throughout the entire country. So why is it that reserves in 2024 all have brown water coming out of their pipes? As you look through the history of Canada, we can read in this story some of the same things they're doing today, some of the same things they were doing 60 years ago, 80 years ago, 100 years ago. These people in Africville are living in the city and they don't have clean water. This is up until around the 1960s, before this place is destroyed. It says, in 1854, a railway extension was cut through the village. Several homes were expropriated and destroyed. Some homeowners protested that they had not been paid for their land and that the speeding trains posed a danger and polluted the village. Now, you were to say that today, people are going to look at you like, oh, you're crazy. Canadian government isn't trying to pollute Africville. Canadian government isn't trying to pollute native reserves. This train line that they're running through the reserve isn't going to destroy their living conditions. This oil pipe that we run through this reserve and their lakes and their water supplies aren't going to destroy their reserve. The natives are just crazy. These black people who are saying inside of Africville that the railway is destroying and polluting our living conditions, they're crazy. Always going to dismiss our people as if there's something wrong with us. It says, some homeowners protested that they had not been paid for their land and that the speeding trains posed a danger and polluted the village. More land was expropriated for the railway in 1912 and in the 1940s. In the first half of the 20th century, municipal services such as public transportation, garbage collection, recreational facilities, and adequate police protection were non-existent in Africville. So you're telling me in the 1940s that this black community inside of Canada had no garbage collection, had no roads, that their community is being polluted. They're running trains through their community. Can you imagine living in a place with no garbage collection? I think it's funny. I see homeowners who complain and damn near lose their shit inside of Toronto when a garbage truck will come by their house and not pick up their garbage. These homeowners are going crazy that their garbage is going to be at their house for another week. These homeowners are going to start complaining that they got possums and rats and mice and raccoons, and all these animals are starting to come in their community because the garbage collection didn't pick up our garbage. Well, this municipality who's paying taxes has zero garbage collection in the 1940s. Ezekiel was spot on when he said that these people have a perpetual hatred for us. You can imagine how this place started to deteriorate over time because of the lack of services that were provided to them. It says, I'm going to read that again. It says municipal services such as public transportation, garbage collection, recreational facilities, and adequate police protection were non-existent in Africville. Understand? These municipal services did not exist. Right? Someone in the chat says, sister in the chat says, grocery prices are very high on the reserves in Canada, sometimes triple the prices than the rest of Canada. Ketchup can be $22. Damn right, sis. Absolutely. And we see that historically, right? All throughout the last 400 years of us being inside of Canada, that these people have always dealt treacherously with us. You understand? And there will always be an excuse as to why we can't get these things. Why there's always some problem with us as to why we have to pay $22 for ketchup. Last I saw that the Canadian government had no problem bringing resources over to Israel and Palestine. They can fly a plane in 2024 to get medical supplies and food and water to people who live on the other side of the earth. They can send billions of dollars over to Ukraine to help and assist the war that's going on with them in Russia. But the reserves will always suffer. The ghettos, the barrios will always suffer. Because they do not care about us. Right? It says, the city of Halifax continued to place undesirable services in Africville. In the second half of the 19th century, these included a fertilizer plant, slaughterhouses, Rockhead Prison, the night soil disposal pits, which was human waste, and the infectious diseases hospital in the 1870s. In 1915, Halifax City Council declared that Africville will always be an industrial district. So what did the government of Canada do to Africville? In simple words, they put a prison there. They put a dump yard there. They put a place to burn their, or get rid of their human feces, as you would say. They put industrial slaughterhouses where they would go to slaughter animals to distribute throughout the city. So they had incinerators there, right? All these different things they built into the community of Africville. They didn't build a mall. They didn't build a grocery store. They didn't build community centers. Dude, the specific hospital they built was for infectious diseases. And that's the same story I hear about what they do on the reserves today. There was a brother I was speaking to in Northern Ontario, and he was speaking about how his daughter's still living on the reserve, and he left the reserve. Now his daughter doesn't want to leave the reserve. And so that reserve was quote unquote okay. They had about 500 people living on the reserve. They didn't have any problems, too many problems. They were being left alone, as you would say. And then one day, the city, I forget what they're called, it's not called the city council, band council. They had a band council on this reserve make a treaty with a Canadian Waste Management Service, Canadian Waste Management Company. And 3 months after they made the deal, it was the first time they started having polluted drinking water. It was the first time people on the reserve started getting sick from drinking this water. And historically, one can only ask yourself, how many coincidences are there going to be of the Canadian government looking at a reserve or a ghetto as a shithole, as a place to drop their waste? That is what they do, as a place to run their pipelines through good lakes where people get their water. People get their clean water from, and ruining these reserves' water supply. They did the same thing here in Africville. It says, in 1915, Halifax City Council declared that Africville will always be an industrial district. Many Africville residents believed anti-Black racism was behind these decisions. In 1917, the Halifax explosion shelved plans to turn Africville into an industrial zone. The disaster leveled much of Halifax's north end and damaged Africville. A global relief effort brought in millions of dollars in donation to rebuild the city, but none of the money went to rebuilding Africville. Halifax did not survey Africville for damage, but oral history records that several homes were badly damaged and lost their roofs. About 4 Africvillians died, although it is thought that they were in the north end when the explosion hit. Throughout the 1930s, residents petitioned the city to provide water, sewage disposal, paved roads, garbage removal, electricity, streetlights, police services, and a cemetery. Their requests were largely denied. In the 1950s, Halifax built an open-pit garbage dump in Africville. The city considered several locations, but council found it was unacceptable to residents in places such as Fairview. And so that's another slap in the face to being Black, Hispanic, or Indigenous inside Canada, where imagine being a people where the council is saying that it's unacceptable to build this garbage dump inside of one of their communities. Unacceptable. Meaning, how could you put a garbage dump around civilized people? I guess the people that were living in Africville were not civilized, because they built that dump inside in the 1950s. It says, one alderman said the dump was a health menace and should not be placed in Fairview. Council voted to put the dump 350 meters from the western edge of Africville. There was no reference in the council minutes to any concern for the health of Africville residents or of any consultation or protest from Africvillians. By the 1960s, many white Halifax residents referred to Africville as a slum built around the dump by scavengers. Seeing Africville as a slum formed an important part of the public acceptance of Africville's destruction. Now, many people have been told this story from Canada from the historical perspective that this place was just a dump. This place was filthy. This place was a community that had just let go. Therefore, it's a good idea that we just demolish everything in it, that we gentrify the neighborhood. And we see historically, being Black, Hispanic, or Indigenous, that gentrification is always what destroys our neighborhoods. For some reason, our neighborhoods always need to be destroyed. A Black neighborhood always needs to be gentrified. Our places are always too ghetto. It's damn near like a buzzword. Damn near a buzzword for racist people. Let's grab that scripture really quick. Matter of fact, we go to the book of Psalms. That's one of my favorite verses. Go to Psalms. We're going to go to Psalms chapter 55. Stop sharing that for a second. Let's go to Psalms 55. I'm starting at verse 20, I believe. This is a beautiful scripture to understand our oppressor. This is who the Bible is speaking about. The Bible is speaking about the spirit of these people. This is Psalms chapter 55 and verse 20. It says, "He hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him." He has put forth his hands. He's caused harm to the Black community inside of Africville that was at peace with him. They were in Africville working as porters, working as domestic servants. They were inside their community paying taxes. Paying taxes. They were trying to just be left alone in a society. They were trying to be at peace with the people who had enslaved their people for hundreds of years. They weren't sitting inside of Africville coming up with plans to overtake all the Europeans and take back everything that they built up and take back what was stolen from them. The citizens of Africville were at peace with the government of Canada. They were at peace with the European settlers. And those European settlers put their hands on the children of God. It says, "He hath broken his covenant." I think it's crazy. There's damn near like 190 peace treaties that were made. between the government of Canada and indigenous people. And every single one of those treaties were broken. Why? Because the oppressor is the devil that the Bible speaks of. That word devil means deceiver. Our oppressor is very deceiving. He is a liar. He was a liar from the beginning. That serpent, that snake, the man that spoke with a forked tongue, he broke his covenant. He has always done that. Verse 21 says, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter. Those are those buzzwords that I'm talking about. We want to gentrify the neighborhood. We're going to make it seem like we're doing something good. We're doing something productive. We're here to help the people. We're here to help the community. This community has just been going downhill. We just want to give you guys a better way of life. We want to put you guys in some better housing, better neighborhoods. Those are smooth words. And too many times where our people believe those words. Our people believe his smooth words. It says, but war was in his heart. War has always been in the heart of your oppressor. How do you know that war is in his heart? This man has gone around colonizing over 150 countries around this earth. You got Europeans inside of South Africa claiming to be African. They own all the farms and all the wealth and all the money down there. And how did they get there? They colonized South Africa. They colonized Europe. You look at the original Scottish people, they were black. The original British people, they were black. The original Egyptians, they were black. Those people over in Egypt were Turkish people who went and colonized that country. You have Europeans who went into Israel and started claiming to be a people that they are not. That's why the president of Palestine said that the children of Israel left this place black and came back white. How did that happen? Because this man, war is in his heart. War is in his heart. He has unalived billions of people on this earth. That goes right back to Isaac when he blessed Esau with the sword. Esau cried and sought out his blessing with tears. Isaac said that ye shall be blessed with the sword. Sword is used for war. That is what Idumeans are good at. That is what Edomites are good at. They are good at war. They talk about the Holocaust like it was the greatest travesty known to man, claiming that 6 million Jews were killed, were unalived. But when Europeans were ready for war, they unalived over 90 million so-called African Americans. over 90 million blacks, over 70 million indigenous brothers and sisters. War is in this man's heart. The Palestinians are feeling it today. The Palestinians are going around calling those Jewish people baby killers, baby unalivers. The Palestinians are going around protesting around the entire earth, chanting free, free, free Palestine, because war is in this man's heart. That's the spirit of Esau. That's what he's good at. It said his words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. He'll say things that sound good. Your oppressor is very good at deceiving people. That's what he's good at. He is a murderer and a liar and the father of it, according to the Bible. This is why the Bible is so real and so true, because these people have over 5,000 years of historical records. You think what Canadians were doing, the European settlers inside of Canada were doing, was a new thing? You didn't read about the records of Rome and Greece and how they went around colonizing the earth, slaughtering all the great kings of the earth? That's in their history. It's what they're good at. Let's drop that. Let's see if there's any more on this article. Right, it says, by 1960, many white Halifax residents referred to Africville as a slum built around the dump by scavengers. Africville School was closed in 1953 as Nova Scotia desegregated its education system. In practice, this meant closing many black schools and busing pupils to the nearest white schools. As such, Africville students went to schools in Halifax. Many faced discrimination and were channeled into auxiliary classes that had few resources. All right, so that's a bit of the history on Africville. Let me see if there's much more in this article. I think we can drop this article. Let's see. Let's read this last part. It says, locals likened Africville to a war zone, with houses disappearing daily. Several homeowners found that their homes had been bulldozed without their knowledge or permission. Right? So as you fast forward a little bit in time, I guess as the city council decides that we're going to destroy this place, they start bulldozing house by house by house inside of this community. You had people who were inside of hospitals, and when they were coming home, or what they thought they were coming home to, they returned to nothing. Houses were bulldozed, and all the garbage was taken back to the garbage dumps. Their homes were destroyed. Right? It says others had only a few hours notice before the bulldozers came. One man returned from a hospital stay to find that his house had been destroyed. Many left with what they could carry. The Seaview United Baptist Church was destroyed in the middle of the night in the spring of 1967. Many residents saw this as the death knell for the community. Expropriation sped up as residents took what deals they could and left. In 1969, the final property was expropriated and demolished, and the last of Africville's 400 residents left. One resident, 24-year-old Eddie Carvey, returned to the site of Africville in 1970 and pitched a tent in protest, demanding a public inquiry and individual compensation for community residents. He actively occupied the site on and off for over 5 decades. In November of 2019, Carvey's protest camp at Africville was dismantled. It was one of the longest civil rights protests in Canada's history. Okay. And so that is a bit of the story of Africville. I got a couple clips I'm going to share just to get kind of like a last glimpse of some of the things that took place. All right, so we're going to go start around here. Okay, and just YouTube, we do not own the records or the rights to this video. Okay, this was a video, this is a documentary. This is a documentary titled Remember Africville from the National Film Board of Canada. I'm just going to play a couple clips from this documentary.
We're not contained with this, we're not mixed up with this environment of prejudice or anything. We're people by ourselves.
We never asked nobody for nothing.
Well, Africville to me at a young age was my universe. To me, that was the world, just the basin and the hills around and Africville.
I remember coming home from school.
Okay, so this is what Africville looked like. Okay, this is back in the 1940s, 1950s, and they're showing you what the community looked like and what some of the people thought and felt about their community that the outside world deemed to be a slum, deemed to be a ghetto, deemed to be a place that needed to be gentrified and destroyed.
You could look over, and everybody's house was painted a different color, like rainbow. My golly, it was pretty.
The community itself meant so much. Playing, swimming, wake up in the morning, run right down, have a nice gravy, jump right off the rock in the water, tied in already.
Baseball? I didn't go too far, was that? No, I didn't. Because I had to do work. I had to work. Yeah. It was a special day, a day that you would never forget. We would sing all the way down to the water side. They take you one by one and baptize you. The Son, I am saved by I'll never forget that picture. I'll never forget it. Oh, you had to see it. To believe it, you had to see it.
Right, so this is a place that was very dear to the people that lived there. This was a community of Blacks who had settled in Canada and built up their own community. Segregation in Canada was a very real thing. And during segregation, they were at peace. When you go throughout the history of Canada looking at segregation, you had blacks who were opening their own businesses, their own farms, their own barbers, their own restaurants, right? Their own schools. Segregation was a very real thing inside of Canada. And I believe the time period where segregation was most relevant was around the 1880s till around 1960. That's the historical time in Canada where blacks and indigenous people inside Canada were segregated from the so-called white man. Okay, the person who identifies as being white. Okay, segregation went from around 1880s in Canada till around the 1960s. And again, no different from the States. When you had Martin Luther King in the 1960s going around trying to preach that we should integrate, and integration is a good thing. The black man should be able to sit at the front of the bus and sit hand in hand with whites on a bus, and blacks should be able to go to the same restaurants and schools as the white man. That whole time frame in the 1960s is when segregation starts to end. All the protesting and marching that were happening in the States during that time was also heavily happening inside of Canada. You can look at the protests in Toronto. You can look at Montreal was an extremely, you could say, had an extremely heavy presence of protesting against segregation. So these same things that were happening in the States were happening in Canada. And so that's around the time segregation starts ending. And this is also around the same time where Africville is destroyed. Okay, this is around the time Africville is destroyed. And what was going on during segregation? The black man inside of Canada was at peace. They were at peace. They were left alone. They had their own schools because the white man did not want blacks going to their schools. You would think that it's the most wicked and evil thing on earth because Canada loves to push that Martin Luther King was such this great pioneer for our people, not understanding that when integration took place, we lost our black businesses. Black businesses were destroyed. The black household was destroyed. The family structure of the black man and woman was destroyed when integration happened. We started to take on the culture of our oppressor. We started to take on the ways of our oppressor, thinking that it was good for us, when in fact it was the most destructive thing that could have ever happened to our people. And that is the one thing that the Most High tells us to stay far away from. Okay. In fact, I'm going to pull up a verse in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 4. Let me share my screen. Okay, we're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 4 because the Most High does not want us to integrate. Okay, Deuteronomy chapter 4, we'll start at verse 5. It says, Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments. This is what the Lord taught blacks, Hispanics, and indigenous people. This is what he told Moses to tell blacks, Hispanics, and indigenous people who are the children of God. He said, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that ye should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it. Meaning the Most High gave us a way of life. Isn't that what they call civilization today? Law and order, judgment, punishments, civilization. This is what the Most High gave the children of Israel. He gave us a way to govern ourselves. When you read through the different laws in the Bible, it's known as the book of the law. Understand? I believe that says that in Numbers. It also says that in the book of Baruch. This is the book of the commandments of God. This Bible is our record. This Bible is our constitution. This Bible is our way of life. It's the way that we were supposed to operate as a people. There's punishments for committing murder. There's punishments for stealing. There's punishments for committing adultery. This is our way of life. Verse 6 says, keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and understanding in the sight of the nations. Because if the children of Israel would keep these laws, then we would be wise. We would be a people of understanding. A people that have no understanding say that it's okay for a man to sleep with another man, for a woman to have different sexual activities with another woman. That is what an uncivilized nation does. That is what a people who are void of understanding do. They're trying to shove a man laying down with a man as a good and a beautiful thing. Meanwhile, they don't tell you the other side. They're not telling you all the STDs that are being passed around amongst this community. They're not telling you about the men who are wearing adult diapers because they can't keep their stool from running. They got stuff just leaking out their behind because they're doing some disgusting things with another man. You got men on painkillers, taking hundreds of painkillers every day just so that they can commit to doing these different sexual acts with the same sex. This is a very real thing. These are a people that are void of understanding. They don't have understanding. The Most High has understanding. That's why he gave you these laws and commandments. Told you that a man laying with a man is an abomination. It's a disgusting thing. He gave us different laws to stay clean. Told our people not to sleep with a woman who's on her flower. Look at all the different HIV that is being passed around because you got people swapping blood with each other. That is not a clean way to live. It's not a smart thing to do. Hey, what's going on? Kwamada Yahawada. Yabashima Shabrakatha. What's going on? The water for tuning in. Right? It's not a wise thing to do. These are people who are void of understanding. That's why he said, if we would keep these laws and commandments, that this would be our wisdom and our understanding in the sight of the nations. Meaning that even these nations would look at us as a wise and understanding people. They would look at how we're living like, hey, we can actually respect a Black, Hispanic, and indigenous man. That's something in the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge we teach our brothers and sisters to do. Even though our oppressor may hate us, they can look at us and they can respect us. They can respect us for the way that we carry ourselves. They can respect the things that we say. You know how many times I'm out interviewing people? I ask a European Christian that does he have the right to defend his house? And 90% of European Christians always say yes. If somebody tried to break into my house and harm my family, I have the right to unalive them with a pistol. That's what a European Christian would say. You ask a black Christian if he has the right to defend his family, he's going to look at you and say, no, you got to love your enemies. Somebody's breaking into my house, I'm going to pray for him. Or if I do something to him, you know, it wasn't the right thing to do. Who am I to take this judgment into my own hands? That's what a black Christian says. Because Christianity taught us to be docile, taught us to be slaves. Didn't teach us to have any self-respect. Didn't teach other nations to look at us and respect us. The Most High said if you keep these, that these nations would look at you as wise and understanding people. Said, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. We were not supposed to be Christian. We were not supposed to act like our oppressor. We weren't supposed to become monogamous and just a man gets one woman and that's it for the rest of his life or for the rest of their lives. We were a people with a different culture. We had laws governing how a man has 4 different women, 4 different wives. We had a different way of life. So as Martin Luther King is telling us that we got to integrate, that integration is a good thing and that we should go eat at the white man's restaurant, the Bible is telling you something different. God was telling you to be holy. Holy means different. Holy means set apart. We're not supposed to be like these other nations. These nations are supposed to look at us as a wise and understanding people. All right. Let's drop that. Let's play another clip from that video. Just had a couple clips I wanted to share. Let's go to jump forward a bit. All right, let's hear this.
Why is that, Mr. Sheet? Why does it hurt you to talk about Africville?
Because it's one of the nicest little communities I ever lived in.
Right, and so again, as we saw earlier, the people in that community, they love their community. They didn't want their community to be destroyed. Even if it was a ghetto, that was their home. They didn't want their home to be destroyed. They just wanted to be left alone. And inside of Africville, it wasn't just Black people that lived. That place was a community where they allowed what they said all people of color to come to. So if you're a brother from Mexico and you're immigrating into Canada, Africville is welcoming you there. And unfortunately, us as a people being so destroyed and not understanding who we are, we probably had no problem letting different Africans into that community, letting Nigerians into that community, thinking that we're all the same people just because of the color of our skin. And so this is a brother who's speaking on, again, some of his thoughts on his community.
Africville?
No, I don't.
Why not?
Because it hurts me.
Why is that, Mr. Sheet? Why does it hurt you to talk about Africville?
Because it's one of the nicest little communities I ever lived in. I'm going to tell you something, I've been around this world twice. I've never met a place like Africville. Never.
But Mr. Steed, everybody thought it was such a bad place.
Who?
All the people who tore it down.
Oh, the people that tore it down.
That's why we read earlier in the book of Psalms, it says the words of his mouth were smoother than butter. This brother's looking at you like, who said this place was a bad place? It's the people that tore it down.
That's the people that tore down the city of Halifax, the authorities of the city of Halifax.
They said it was a bad place.
That's what they called it.
They said it was a bad place. Meanwhile, it was them that put the garbage dump there. They put the prison inside of Africville. They put the incinerator inside of Africville. They put the place where you slaughtered animals and distributed out to the city. That's where they put those things. If it was a dump, it's because the city of Halifax made it that way. You had that bomb that went off in Halifax, and the city of Halifax didn't even survey Africville to help fix it up. We saw that sisters say is that where the road ended, Africville began, because they didn't put any driveways or paved roads inside of Africville. They didn't put street lights inside of Africville. They didn't put electricity inside of Africville. They didn't put sewage and running water inside of Africville. Halifax destroyed that place, not the black man.
But it was not to us, it was a heaven, a home, a real home.
This brother said that Africville was a heaven. And that indigenous man said that if the Christian heaven is full of your people, I don't want any part of it. This brother right here is calling Africville a heaven. Why? Because it was his home. It was a community of his people. It was a community where he could send his kids to school and not be worried about mistreatment from a teacher of another race, where he could let his kids and his family run around his community and not be worried about the things that went on. This was a place of safety for this brother. This was a place of heaven. It was a place void of other nations, void of his oppressor, where the majority of his people gathered. And that's such a beautiful and biblical thing. Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 1 says, "Gather ye selves together, O nation undesired." The city of Halifax looked at these people as an undesirable people. They looked at us as thugs, as ghetto, you understand, as every other name under the sun that they call us. Meanwhile, it was a heaven for us. It was a place where we could gather and have our own community. The only thing that this community was missing was the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. That's why this place didn't have the Most High's protection. And this is why what we're doing in the I.S.U.P.K is such a beautiful thing, because we're providing a safe place for Blacks, Hispanics, and indigenous people, where we can go to a Passover and only be around our people, where our kids and our wives can walk around and run around and play and not be worried about them being in danger. That's why it says in the book of Ezekiel chapter 11, I believe verse 16, Most High said that he would have a little sanctuary for us amongst the nations that he scattered us. That's the I.S.U.P.K. A little sanctuary is where segregation exists, where our oppressor and these other nations are not with us. We don't have to worry about another nation mistreating us. That's in the Bible. Gather yourselves together, O nation not desired. When you go through our laws, Other nations are not allowed at the Passover, not allowed at our feast days and our high holy days. You're not allowed to be with us there. Because the Lord wants us to be safe. The Lord wants us to have a little piece of heaven on this earth. That's why Christ said the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God is within you. If Blacks, Hispanics, and indigenous people would just gather together and act right, then we would have our own heaven. We would live in heaven. We wouldn't be worried about our children being molested by some Catholic priest. We wouldn't be worried about our kids being sexually abused by some nun in a residential school. We would have our kingdom. All right. Got one more part of a clip I'm going to play. Let's jump back a bit.
Public hearings in the church and listen to the residents directly.
Imagine for a moment a young person living in Africville. You're living with your parents. You're given a small piece of land by your father or your grandparents, but you live home. You build your home on that piece of land. You pay cash for everything. It takes 2 years or more of hard work, and you put every penny and every free moment into building this home. Your brother's a carpenter. Your cousin is a bricklayer. 2 years later, you have a home, a piece of land, mortgage free. My generation has been deprived of this opportunity. We'll struggle for everything we get because someone decided that the land of Africville would serve the city better as industrial land. They should think again.
That's the sad thing, that our people believe that Canada is our rest. When you read throughout the laws in Leviticus, you read about all the different laws of inheritance. The father giving his eldest son his inheritance, passing on to your children the things that you worked hard for, worked hard to get. Well, brothers and sisters inside of Africville understood that and understood what they were deprived of. They saw generation after generation of their ancestors build that community. They were descendants of slaves who built up farms and built up Black businesses, built up Black schools, built up their own community, purchased land, and they just began to pass that on to their children. And like that brother said, a lot of people love to look at Blacks, Hispanics, and indigenous like we weren't a skilled people. We built Canada. We built America. We read blueprints and we built up buildings and all these different infrastructure. And we had the skills to do that back in the 1940s, 1950s, back in the 1800s and 1700s. When this brother says, I got a cousin who's a carpenter and a cousin who's a bricklayer, it's a very real thing. He just needed some time to put into building a house and gathering some resources. Over time, collecting bags of concrete so he could build a foundation. Start cutting down trees. They could cut down trees on their own land and process their own wood and build their own houses. That's what they did. And the people were proud of the things that they were doing and the community that they built and established for their kids. So when Nova Scotia comes in, or the city of Halifax comes in and destroys that place, they didn't give the people in that community new land. They didn't give the people in that community a new place for them to live and build their own houses again and infrastructure again. They put those people inside of government housing, some of which people are still living there to this day. Living inside in the downtowns and different government housing projects. This is how they're living today. Let's go to let's do one more thing. All right, we're running through time. Let's run through one more quick thing, and then we'll end out the class. Let's share one more quick video, then we'll read a verse, and then we'll end the class. Make sure, again, you like, share, subscribe. All right, if you like the content, make sure you share, like, subscribe. Again, if you're a brother and sister, make sure you're hitting that sign-in link and the sign-out link. I'll put the sign-out link in the chat before the class is done. All right, so let's get one more thing, just to wrap this class up a bit. Okay, so this is a video from CBC, just saying, remembering Africville.
Day for some people in Halifax. Former residents of a community called Africville have gathered to celebrate the rebuilding.
So this is what's going on today. I think this, let me see if, okay, this video was put out by CBC 13 years ago. All right, there's definitely some more recent videos on Africville and what's going on. All right, this is one that was put out about 13 years ago. So Africville was destroyed back in the 1960s. I think 1970 was the last house that was destroyed in that community. And this was a video just on remembering Africville. All right, again, I'll type Africville in the chat. Africville, if you want to look it up. There's tons of information out on Africville. All right, you probably just type it into Google, and you will get a lot of information on this place. All right.
Of their church. The Dixons, the Browns, the Fletchers, those were some of the first families to settle at the northern tip of Halifax in the 1840s. Now, many of them were former slaves coming to Canada in search of a better life. Together, they created a vibrant community quickly dubbed Africville, but years of neglect and racism turned the neighborhood into one of the worst slums in the country. So in the 1960s, its residents were evicted and the settlement bulldozed, creating deep wounds in Halifax that have yet to heal. Poet and playwright George Eliot Clark is in Halifax today at the opening of the replica Africville Church, and Clark has written extensive.
This is what they call a replica of the church that they destroyed back in the 1960s. The government of Canada decided to officially release an apology. That official apology was given to the residents of the community of Africville in 2010. Okay, some 50 years later, right? And so as the Canadian government officially gives an apology in 2010, they also decide that, hey, we need to rectify this hurt that we caused these people. And what did they do to rectify the hurt and all the destruction that they caused? They built a replica of a church on that land that was once the community of Africville. They built a church that is a replica of a church that on the inside is a museum telling the history of Africville. This is what they decided reparations or repayment would look like.
about the experience of Black Canadians in Nova Scotia. George, you've disappeared. There you are. You're back. All right. So,
sorry. Yes.
Listen, a special day for many, not only Haligonians, but just a lot of people in Nova Scotia. You're there. What are people saying? What's it like for you?
Well, this is the beginning of a recovery of culture and history that had been neglected, which some had thought that they could basically bulldoze away. And the reconstruction of the Seaview African Baptist Church or United Baptist Church is really long overdue, but it's also a chance for celebration of survival, of recognizing the greatness of African Nova Scotian culture and the integral part that this culture plays in Nova Scotia, as well as by extension in Canada, and as part of the African diaspora.
Yeah, let's touch upon that a little bit. I talked to a former resident. Of course, this resonates with him because it was directly a loss for his community. But what about people who weren't part of this, who aren't, let's say, from Halifax? Will this mean anything for them?
Yes, I think it's a lesson to everyone that if you do not try to maintain your culture, if you think it's important, then it's very likely that you may lose it or that others may try to take it away from you.
This man is the definition. We did this class a couple weeks ago. This man is the definition of an Uncle Tom. You understand? And it's so sad for our people to buy into the narrative, as he said, that it's our fault that this place was destroyed. It's our fault how we let our community become a ghetto. And this is why we lost our community. And he says one of the greatest lessons to learn from this is to make sure that we maintain our community. This is what Canada wants the Black man inside of Canada to believe. These are the stories that the Canadian government always pushes. Like Canada is some great place, some peaceful place that doesn't harm anybody. Right, that book of Psalms, chapter 55, is so on point. His words were smoother than butter, yet were they drawn swords. Right, I'm just paraphrasing. The destruction of Africville was because your oppressor has a perpetual hatred for you. He doesn't want to see you rise. He doesn't want to see you do well. He doesn't want HBCUs to be prospering and Black business to be prospering. Your oppressor is extremely greedy. He wants you to build his kingdom and his nation. He doesn't want what's best for you. He wants what's best for him and his family. Like it says in Ecclesiasticus, every beast loveth his like. The ducks chill with the ducks. The lions chill with the lions. The zebras chill with the zebras. And the oppressor chills with his people. So he has no problem sending billions of dollars to help aid Ukraine. But he will not send money to the ghetto and the reservation. Even if you're, quote unquote, a part of his nation, you're a good Canadian citizen, he is going to send money to Ukraine. He is going to send money over to Israel and help those Jewish people. He is not sending money to the reservation. Every beast loveth his like.
That may be an unfortunate lesson to have to read.
Does that mean anything for them?
Yes, I think it's a lesson to everyone that if you do not try to maintain your culture, if you think it's important, then it's very likely that you may lose it or that others may try to take it away from you. That may be an unfortunate lesson to have to reinforce here in front of this beautiful church. But it's because of the fact that our forebears, to a certain extent, did not appreciate that lesson enough that the original church ended up being bulldozed and the original Africville community dispersed. And it's because of the destruction of Africville that African Nova Scotians really began in the late 60s, early 70s to say, we have a culture that's worth preserving, and that we had better do our best to preserve it and resuscitate Africville, or we may see the entirety of African Nova Scotia bulldozed to the ground and people removed and dispersed.
Now, this particular church has been resuscitated in some ways. You've written a lot of this. This has sort of influenced your own writings. Do you feel that this will, this rebuilding will spur further artistic efforts, either by yourself or other artists in Nova Scotia or elsewhere?
Well, I think as I was just saying, there was I shouldn't say was, I mean, there still is very much a cultural renaissance that's been going on in the.
Right, let's stop that. That's enough of that. Right, and so we're going to end the class with this verse. You understand? This is what Canada continually does for our people. It is never going to change. You had Indigenous people begging for the Pope to come out and give an apology. Canadian government apologizes in 2010 for destroying a neighborhood, destroying families, and tearing apart a community. And what do? They just apologize to you. They spit in your face and they build a church when they forced Christianity on your ancestors. They forced the ancestors of our people to be Christian. The book of Baruch says, hear the prayers of the dead Israelites. Do you think your ancestors back in the 1700s wanted you to be Christian? You think your ancestors in the past wanted a church being built in your community? This was forced onto them through slavery. The oppressor thought that you needed to be civilized. And so they gave you Christianity. They gave this Africville community a church that they turned into a museum. Like, this is going to rectify what they did. Jeremiah chapter 6:14 says, they have healed also the hurt of the daughter of my people slightly. That's what they do. They heal us slightly. They look at us and they smile and they say, we're sorry for what we've done. But they don't actually do anything to rectify it. They say peace, peace, when there is no peace. There is no peace between our oppressor. There's no peace between the oppressor and the Black, Hispanic, and Indigenous people. That's the spirit of us. Right from when we fought in the womb, in Rebecca's womb. Before we came out, we were fighting in the womb. We weren't meant and made to get along. All right, and so with that, I'm going to end Monday Night History class. The water for tuning in. All right, again, make sure you hit those like buttons. Put the sign out link in the chat. And with that, I'm going to say Shalom, Yahba Shem Yashai Barakathum to all the brothers. And Yahweh Shamar, Allah Thab Hashem Yashai to all the sisters. All right, we'll be live again next Monday night from 5 till 7 p.m. All right, Shalom.
Baby, no listen to no fake news, them can't. Could hold it out and them never fake news. Notice say I just be a bad bitch, I get forward from with you. But the one you have to good girl there. Easy. She never did a features, R-rated. Never did a features, half naked. Me never did a piggy R-ratings. Halfway, that's why me give R-ratings. She never did a features, half naked. Never did a features, R-rated. Me never did a piggy R-ratings. Halfway, that's why me give R-ratings. And every every girl a white material. And every girl fi get the juice in a me seed bag. And every girl me trust to cook my food, nor boil me tea, not even put the milk in a the cereal. Me like a catty when medieval, when we fi wash for cook fi clean and no fuss. When she hear me get a new girl, I know that me mean when me say me fight me demons. Multiple wife legally, no illegal.